Hello, everyone. You are watching Empowering Voices, stories of resilience and hope. My name is Perla Javate. I'd like to welcome you to the storytelling project of the Coalition of Manitoba Cultural Communities for Families. Our focus is on telling stories of immigrants and those who experienced being a refugee. Their stories will be about how social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, values and beliefs have impacted their lives, their families, and their communities. We are interested in learning what has worked well and what we could do better in our city. Today, we are happy to have as guest in our podcast, Odelia Duffus. Welcome.
Thank you, Perla.
We are so glad to have you with us today to share your story. To start with, please tell us who you are, how long you've been in Canada, and which community you identify with.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here to share my story. My name is Odelia Duffus, like you mentioned earlier. I am a Jamaican-born young woman. I've been in Canada for almost 5 years now, and I associate with the Jamaican community. But at the same time, I associate with the African community as well, because that's my ancestry. So, yeah, those are my communities right now.
Thank you. So, just to put context to what we will be talking about, let us start with your life before coming to Canada. Please describe to us your family growing up, its composition, the important values that you and your siblings grew up with, and the relationship within the family.
Right, thanks. Well, I grew up in a Christian household. I'm from a nuclear family, my mom, my dad, and my brother. My dad left the home when we were young, so it was really my mom and my brother that, we created a tight family dynamic together. So because we were raised in the church, the Christian values is what my parents taught us, my mom especially. It was always, do what you can, live for Jesus. That was the motto that we went by. Be kind to everyone, treat your neighbor how you'd want to be treated. The regular, don't steal, don't lie, don't gossip. So those are, we grew up inside and in the church. So if we weren't at church, we were always at home, which at that time I appreciated because that's where my socialization happened, which I don't think is a negative thing. So yeah, it was always church and school. My parents put a lot of value on school, making sure that we got as much education as we could, because that was the only way out of poverty.
Exactly.
I mean, we weren't necessarily poor, like, I never went to bed hungry, but at the same time, like, resources weren't readily available. We had to work hard to pay for school, to pay for university and stuff like that. But I think that's what makes me so resilient and strong. I want to call myself a strong person because it's always a fight for me. So when difficult things come my way, I'm not swayed too much because that's my upbringing. My mom raised me to be strong and to just always, if something comes, always try to find a way to combat it and just keep going. So, yeah.
Sure grew up with strong Christian values.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if you had a chance to interact with the wider community, those who necessarily were not part of a Christian religion or...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Have you?
Sure. Yes.
How can you describe that community?
Well, it's very vibrant. The culture is big and it's very there. And even though I'm from Christian background, I can still appreciate the secular culture. That's what kind of adds to my personality of being bubbly and stuff like that. So within that wider community, being Christian was never a taboo thing, because it was a Christian country. So even if you're not Christian, you still kind of uphold the same Christian values. And if you don't, then we're still wide and open and loving and warm enough to still welcome you in. So there's not too much tension when it comes to different beliefs within the Jamaican community. So it was good growing up on, growing up on the
Had
streets with
fun.
other kids. I learned a lot in school, just interacting with different kids. Because the city I was born in is not the city I was raised in. We moved from Kingston to Montego Bay. So I was new to everything, new to the way the rural areas speak.
Right.
So it was kind of like a learning process for me to kind of like find myself in that community and identify the fact that I am different, but at the same time, I'm still the same because we're all Jamaican. Yeah.
What did you find worked out in terms of dealing with, of course, differences that you've encountered along the way?
Okay. Well, I mean, just talking about it. Well, there was some bullying and teasing at the younger level, but just asking for help. And talking it through with my peers and my family members, that kind of helped us. We are a close-knit community, so and it's not like, I wasn't like an outcast. I was made fun of for the way I didn't really know the ropes of the streets yet, but at the same time, there was people helping me along, and my brother too, so I didn't feel like
supportive community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So, at your age, while in your country, did you ever encounter issues of social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion?
Yeah, for sure, especially in university. I started studying law in Jamaica before coming here at the University of the West Indies. And we had, major issues like that, even though white folks, students coming in were the minority in that case, we were still faced with issues, social justice issues, classism. Those things are still prevalent, and racism too is still there. I would think that that's because of our history, being colonized by the Europeans. I think that history and that trauma transcended into the generation now, and we were still trying to break down those barriers. We've made progress, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of work that can be done, just the same.
Can you give us some specific examples of that?
Yeah, I can go back to my childhood growing up. Most schools, we wear uniforms, and it sounds like a simple thing, but it's something coming from European culture. Right. We wear uniforms. We are not encouraged to speak our colloquial language, which is patois. Yeah. For me, growing up as a female, it was always, don't speak like that. It's not classy, or it's not ladylike, or you sound poor. But it's my language, it's my roots. I wasn't encouraged to speak it. My high school, they didn't want us speaking patois. So we weren't given the opportunity to hold on to our roots because it didn't fall in line with the European idea of being wealthy, of being doing well for yourself. If you spoke patois, people would look at you a certain way already without even knowing anything about you. So those issues existed within that Jamaican context, and I kind of see it happening in Canadian context too, just in a different way, where it comes to accents and grammar, and people who speak broken English are looked at differently. So I'm seeing it in both environments, just in different ways.
And the language you spoke was English, right?
It's English. It's just a combination of Dutch, French, Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a slave. It was a language the slaves created. So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So language was not a problem for you coming over to Canada then?
Oh yes, it was.
It was. Okay.
It was a problem, but at the same time, I had a Canadian accent. So that's the issue. I would look. I'm black, obviously, but at the same time, people would say, you don't sound Jamaican, you don't sound like you're from Jamaica. And honestly, that hurts. It really stings because, but I understand what they're saying or why they say that. It's because my accent is not as strong as others. And that's because I wasn't encouraged to speak patois, so it was always standard English. I can tell you a story. When I was younger, my dad when he would come back home, he would come and he's interacting with us. And my mom would say to him, don't talk to the children like that. I don't want them to start speaking like you, because he spoke deep patois. And that happens at a young age, but the fact that I still remember it is just It speaks to me because I realized that it affected everyone in many different ways. So, yeah, I speak standard English and that's okay. But when I speak broken English, it's still a problem. So I'm just like in the middle, like, do you want me to speak standard English? Can I speak my regular English, my patois, and you still understand me? So I just have to code switch and speak the way people understand, which makes me feel like I'm not being authentic to myself. But I guess I'll leave that authentic experience for my fellow Jamaicans. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Can you share with us the journey that you went through coming over to Canada? I mean, the process that you had to face in your country and then arriving here, and what kinds of things you've experienced.
Okay, that's a very loaded question, and it takes me back to the year 2019 because that's when I arrived in Canada. So just to give you a context, I was already studying in university, but I was drowning. Like I just didn't, the environment just wasn't, I didn't feel like I was growing and I just needed a change. So I asked my mom like, hey, if I find a university in Canada that's affordable and same as the one I'm going to now, can I go? And she said, yeah, go for it. And honestly, I applied with like a whim, like on a whim. Like I didn't even expect to be accepted, but I was, and then I was just like, okay, now I'm accepted into university. I need to like make this fast and like apply. So the embassy process, truthfully, was stressful. As I think any other country embassy process is like. I had to go multiple times to send in different documents. Every time I went thinking this is the last time for an interview, oh no, you need to send in proof of finances, this, that. And I'm just like, how much do I need to do to get into one country? But it was kind of difficult. But I applied to university as an international student, and I arrived as an international student. I had no idea what that meant, to be honest. I just I knew that, okay, I'm from a different country and coming into a newer country, like third world to first world type of thing. But it came with a lot of surprises. When I arrived, first of all, Canada is so clean. When I was in the airport, I was like, oh my gosh, this smells so light. Like so, anyway, no judgment on my country, but it's just cleaner and different. But when I arrived to my university, the welcome was warm. Like I was treated well. I was treated like royalty, kind of, which was surprising because I felt like I would, be like isolated. But that's not the experience I had at first. It was warm, and I felt like I could share, and that people were interested in my culture. It was almost like, oh, a new toy. Let me ask as many questions as I can about jerk chicken, about dancehall music, about Bob Marley. You say, but like those were all the questions I received, which was kind of, overwhelming, but at the same time, I appreciated it. It was kind of hard, though, adjusting to the class structure, the professors. I felt like at that point in the classroom, that's when I felt the most, like, aware of that I'm different. Because the class lessons were different, the way they taught the lessons was different. It was more independent, where you just get the information, you go back and you do it by yourself. So coming from university, I was always like a straight A student, honor roll this, and my first grade in at university was a C, and I cried. I was like, what? A C? and I didn't realize that was a good grade. That means I passed. But because my culture like instilled like excellence and like A plus or B, then that's why I felt like, okay, I'm failing because I got a C. That's not what my parents taught me, But apart from that, it was okay. I do remember situations where I felt like this is not a place I need to be. My first job in Canada was as a dishwasher in my university's cafeteria. Which was okay. I didn't see anything wrong with it, despite the stares and the glances. But the worker there asked me, he said, well, how do you speak English so well? Like, what's the language from Jamaica? And I was thinking, seriously? That is so, like, to me, that was ignorant. But then I responded and I, said, yeah, we speak English, and they were surprised by it. And then I just realized that I was in my small bubble in Jamaica thinking that everybody just knew everything about each other's culture, but no, like it was like a new world to them. They were like, oh, here's this black person from the Caribbean speaking English. Like, it was just weird, you know. And then I also remember in my university classes when I would like share, like respond to questions, it was just, the room was just quiet and you could feel the stillness because people just didn't know what to do with what I was sharing because it was coming from a cultural perspective sometimes, and even the way I would explain it, they wouldn't understand it. So when I came in, I was speaking patois, you know, I was just talking regular, you know, just because that's who I am. And then everybody kept saying, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? I don't understand. Can you talk slower? And I'm like, I think I'm speaking okay. So from there, I made the decision to just dial my personality down and to dial the way I speak down and to like code switch. So I would speak a certain way with a certain group of people, and then when I'm with my people, that's when I kind of breathe and relax. And that was just so stressful. I felt like I was holding my breath so much just walking through my university hallways. I knew that people were looking at me, and if I would laugh too loud, they'd look at me and say things about me. The food I was eating, it smelled different. It was just, you know, I just felt, yeah, the welcome was warm, but as I went through my university like time there, I just realized more that I'm so much different from these people, and they don't know what to do with my difference. It makes them uncomfortable, so they either ignore it, make fun of it, or you know, just you know, or some people appreciate it. I won't say some people do appreciate it and want to know more, but it was like a half-half type of situation.
Okay. So when you came to Canada, you already had expectations.
Yeah.
Were there any that you found was lacking from those expectations you had?
Like with the school itself, or just the
generally, you know, everything around?
Well, I didn't expect to get so much help. Like I thought I would come and just have to like figure everything out by myself. But there are actually people along the way who helped me, and I didn't expect that. I really didn't expect that. But at the same time, I really never expected for things to be so hard, like getting a bank account, just finding a job, like those things were so hard because I wasn't from here. So even the job experience I had in Jamaica, it wasn't really recognized because it wasn't within Northern America. So I kind of had to tweak things a little bit to finally land a proper job. It was kind of hard. The situation for international students is not easy. The information is not accessible. You have to dig to find information. You know, your study permit will expire, and you just, it's like, it's expired, you know it's expired, but then what do you do? How can I like fix this? And you have to travel all the way there and travel all the way there to like fix that situation. It's just, it's hectic, it's tedious. So managing, transferring from your own country to a foreign place, trying to fit in, trying to settle in, trying to find a job, because some of us do support our families back home. That's kind of why some people are sent here, to come to North America to work and support your family back home. So you're trying to balance that too. You're trying to get adjusted to the food. You're trying to adjust to winter, which is not easy. And then everything else is just so hard. It's not accessible. So I would think that based on the conversations I've had with my friends, the experience is hard if you don't find like support. So like, I've found family in different people. All of my friends are from different countries. My best friend's from Ethiopia, another friend's from Nigeria, another friend's from Ivory Coast, one's from India, you know, one's from Korea. So like, you kind of have to just find people and like build a bond and a community there, because you kind of come without your community, so you kind of have to find one. And also try to connect with your own community. So I did that. I reached out to the Jamaican community and tried to connect with some people. They weren't as active at that time, but now they are. So I have supports from people who understand my culture, would understand, you know, the sensitivities surrounding it. So right now I'm good, but at first, not so much.
Well, I can say that you are really courageous, because I know a lot of international students come here and they have their family with them.
Yeah.
So Odelia, can you tell us more about your experiences in university?
Sure. So it was difficult. I'm usually a type of person who will like respond in class. I'm not like drawn back. I will respond. And I remember the first couple classes I was in, I responded to a question, and the professor responded in a way that kind of made me feel small in the class. I talked about a topic, and he kind of dismissed it by saying thank you for that cultural perspective or cultural opinion on this topic, and it really wasn't a cultural perspective. I was just speaking on the topic generally, but by doing that, he kind of like shut me down and just pushed me in a box of just everything she says is from a cultural perspective, because she's not from Canada, she's from somewhere else. She doesn't, he didn't know what to do with my comment, and that just, it was not a good experience. So from there, I kind of just stopped participating in class like that way. If it's not something that's like fact-based, I don't share on it, because I was afraid of them minimizing me to just, the black girl with the cultural view on everything, And when I talk about, like, if we're discussing racism and, colonization, I talk about it, it always felt like I was attacking people, because most of the times I was the only black person in my class, so it was so isolating, and so I was afraid to share my opinion or share facts on the fact that racism is still very prevalent. It exists, and people are still experiencing it, because I was afraid of making them feel bad, and I don't think I should have been, because it's not an okay thing. So even if they do feel bad, that's on them,
Yeah, right.
But I didn't feel empowered in that moment, because my professors, the faculty, did not provide that space for me to speak up, and they didn't use what I shared and like kind of educate the rest of the class. It was just like, okay, she shared that. Thank you for participating. Dismissed. Let's move on. And usually when everybody else shared, they would build on it. Like if Becky shared, Becky's opinion was like, used, and they would put it back to the class. Well, class, what do you think about so-so's opinion? For me, it was never that. It was just silence, and I could feel it. Like, people weren't saying anything. Usually I'd sit at the back, but I could just feel it. I could see it in their body language, and it was just not good. I didn't feel comfortable sharing. But, that experience or those experiences caused me to join the International Student Council, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be here and leave and this still be an issue. So I got involved in that, and I voiced my opinion there because they asked for it.
Yes.
So I wrote a list of things that could be changed, and I don't know if the changes are made, but I feel like that was my way of helping the other generation that's coming feel more comfortable and settle a bit more easier, because it affects your grades.
Exactly.
If you're not participating, if you can't be a part of the discussion, then how are you going to learn? So yeah.
Wow. Great. With that sensitivity and awareness of the things that are going on, the things that are different from, sort of pushed you to be, to do some modification of the way you do things, the way you think. How long did it take you to be comfortable enough and feeling empowered enough to be who you are?
Probably my last year. In my mind, I was like, okay, I'm leaving this university. Let me just put it all out there. And that's the year when I had my senior position. So like my input was kind of acknowledged a bit more. I was encouraged to like participate in leadership from I started, but I just didn't feel like I was like, who am I going to lead? What am I going to tell them? I'm still struggling myself. So after being in it, my final year, I got involved, and yeah, I think towards the end is when I realized that, okay, they notice me now, because I graduated as valedictorian, and it was like based on your merit and your academics, but at the same time it was a voting situation as well. And when I realized that the students voted for me, like the white students, the international students, they all thought I had something valuable to say, I was like, oh wow.
Great.
That's like I feel like, okay, I did.
It's a validation.
Yeah, it's a validation. So On that day of graduation, I shared my story, and I shared my story in a way to like uplift international students, and at the same time uplift Canadian students too, because I don't see why there needs to be like a different, like a separation. We're all the same. We're not the
Right.
same, but like, you know, we're all experiencing life just the same, and I just feel like there's ways that we can pull those communities together that will be engaging, and you know, that will help both communities or all types of people to grow. I think there's a way we can bridge that gap, but
That's right.
that will take years, and I know that people are trying now to do that, but there's a lot more that can be done.
Wow. So anyway, being an international student is one popular pathway for individuals and families to come to Canada now. Through your experiences, and you've shared some of them already, what can be done better by universities or by government to to help make the transition smooth for upcoming students,
Yeah.
international students?
That's a good question. Well, yeah, I want to talk about mental health. We're not sensitive to mental health where I'm from. So people come to Canada and they are experiencing mental health issues and they feel shame from it because culturally that's not a thing. And my culture is so superstitious and spiritual that we assign or spiritual and superstitious beliefs to mental health, like showings or showcasing. What's that word? You know, when people showcase traits that they have a mental health issue, it's not acknowledged as, okay, maybe this person needs help. It's like something's wrong with them, and it's not. It's like spiritual, you know. I don't know if you understand that. I don't want to go too much into it because
We have the same
yeah?
thinking in
Right.
our
Okay.
country.
So if so I have, my uncle is schizophrenic. My grandmother died with schizophrenia, but it was always talked about in a way that it was always like, oh, that's demon possession, or, you know, he's being attacked by spirits. When really it's just a mental health issue. It's an issue with the brain, you know, like there's explanations for it, but those things were ignored because it was always seen, okay, if a person is acting a certain way, like maybe walking on the streets talking to themselves, they're possessed or they're being attacked or they're seeing things, you know. So the attention wasn't given to them. There was no support, and they were usually left like isolated. Their families would either kick them out or leave them on the streets. So it was a rough situation for people experiencing mental health issues. So people from Jamaica and other cultures who come here with that type of ideology, they don't seek the help that they really need because they're ashamed, and they're probably thinking the same things too, like, okay, am I possessed? Something wrong with me? Well, really, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You just need support. You need medication, or you need somebody to talk to. So I think government or universities need to be aware of this cultural these cultural ideas around mental health, and kind of like instill programs or supports for students who are experiencing it but don't know where to go because they don't know. They didn't grow up seeing people getting help for mental health. So they sit in their small spaces and they deal with it on their own, which leads to drug abuse, alcohol abuse, just abuse, because there's really, like, what do I do? Nobody told me what to do. Nobody taught me that this was okay for me to experience. So I think if we could work on that awareness with the cultural sensitivities, I think that would be really good. And just improving community engagement. Like, I know I can't vote. At the same time, the decisions that are made, I can't vote because I'm not a citizen, but the decisions that are made by government affect me just the same. So, but I'm not given the opportunity to share that with any government official. So I think if we could find minority groups who are willing to talk and share, that the government officials should give that chance for people to sit down, the grassroots people to sit down and share their experiences, share how the new policies are affecting them, so that they can make better decisions that will help everybody feel comfortable living and creating family and life in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, in Canada in general. Those are the two main things. So, yeah.
Those are good things that we need to remember.
Yeah.
Things that we can improve on for sure. With this upcoming election, hopefully you'll have that opportunity to talk to candidates.
Hope so.
Those who are hoping to be in position, to hear all your perspectives about the kinds of struggles newcomers or international students face.
Yeah.
And I understand international students is a vulnerable group for mental health, especially if they come all by themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's good.
Yeah.
So what other kinds of involvement do you have in the community?
My community involvement so far, I mean, it's not as much as I want it to be, but I think my work with mediation services and now my work with CMCCF is helping to like push me out into the community, and not just my own like Jamaican or African community, but others too. When at mediation services, I work as a mediator / caseworker. I work with people who have gotten criminal offenses and are coming in to make amends for the harm that they caused, and also work towards getting their charges dropped. And I meet people from all over the world, and that makes me feel good. I feel like I'm giving back to the community when I am able to connect them with the resources that they need to improve their life. So whether that's a mental health resource or a job finding organization that can help them, or just support financially, because that's a major issue that people from immigrants experience. Financially is hard. Back home they say when you leave, America or Canada is a bed of roses. It's not. It's really not. If you weren't raised here, if you don't have family here, it's a struggle. And people are struggling financially to keep their head above water. So when I can help them connect with outside organizations, I feel like I'm helping. Right now, I'm also involved in the African Cup of Nations. It's a summer thing where the African countries build their own teams from their own country and they play against each other, and I support that. I'm there for all the matches. I know nothing about soccer, but just the fact that all these countries are coming together to play and to eat food together, I am there and I love it. It's rich. So yeah, I would really like to get more involved with my Jamaican community, but I'm working on that. Yeah.
You have your future ahead of you.
Yeah.
Okay. There are some who relate cultural communities to folklorama, and that, of course, is okay. It has helped make our community aware of the different cultural groups we have. However, there's more to our cultural communities that everyone should be made aware of. So I'm interested to hear your perspective in regards to what do you think is working in our community from the point of view of social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Okay, that's a good question. Yay for folklorama. I've never been, and hopefully I get to go this year. As it relates to social justice, I think right now I know that there's a lot of work being put into helping immigrants settle, like with housing and job finding. And I think that's great that the government is budgeting money for that, and I think they should continue doing that. For international students specifically, I think that there could be more support in helping. I don't know whether it's like making employers aware of the other job experiences and how valid those are, even if it's not within Canada. I don't know if there needs to be like more education around that, because I know a lot of immigrants come in who are doctors, engineers, and they can't find a job within their field because it's not recognized. So I don't know what type of like collaboration needs to happen, what type of partnership needs to happen. Maybe Canada needs to be in more contact with government officials in other countries to like sort out that. But I don't think it's fair for people who are professionals to come into Canada and have to do like minimum wage jobs because it's not recognized within this context. I mean, I understand maybe the education system is slightly different, but I'm sure there are ways that they can find to erase that gray area
Make
that,
that bridge between
yeah, bridge that gap
Canadian system.
that immigrants naturally fall into. So that's one thing specific, because I know people are struggling financially, like I mentioned before. And if there's more support, that can be, a little push, because
You're right.
we all get there eventually. No, I
Yes.
don't. I want to say that no, immigrants come here with the intention to make life, to build family, to buy a home, to just live life, because they wouldn't leave their country if that wasn't the intention.
Right.
But it takes such a long time, and it's so hard to get to that point. And some people lose hope because they don't have family, they don't find community support. So I think eliminating those barriers would be helpful.
That's
Yeah.
great.
But as it relates to diversity, though, within the school system, I think that, I don't know, maybe a shift with the curriculum or the syllabus to educate students on cultural diversities and their, I don't even want to say tolerance, their understanding and maybe not even appreciation, but understanding that there are different cultures. Because it starts from that level. When students become aware, kids, like teenagers, when they're aware that there's people living in this space that are different from me, and they learn how to interact and function in space with them, I think as they grow older, the issues that we're facing now, where there's discrimination in the workplace, where people are feeling isolated, feel like they don't belong, will kind of not exist, but it won't be as bad if we start from the small age, teaching them these things. Because
Exactly.
if you look at Winnipeg's demographic, there's Indians, Jamaicans, Africans, Filipinos.
Right.
Like, it's not just a predominantly white society. We're so mixed, but we just don't know each other. We don't know how to exist in a space with each other well. I don't think properly yet.
Now, can we look at diversity and inclusion more specifically in your community? Where do you think your community stands now in relation to those two issues?
Where does my community stand in relation to diversity and inclusion?
Yeah.
Honestly, the Jamaican community, what I'd really like to see is representation. And I don't really see that. Like, the representation as in with government. Like, we're going back to government, or just organizations that have, like, power. There's not much representation, like, with the BIPOC community and stuff like that. The officials, maybe I'm ignorant to what's happening right now, but that's what I would like to see. Because when I see a fellow like me, it kind of like encourages me to make a difference in my own small space, because I see them leading, and I see the diversity with the government officials. I see diversity in the plans that they make and stuff like that. I see diversity even in the buildings with the, I don't know, flags on the wall, artwork from different cultures on the wall. Simple things like those really encourage people to, like, move forward. I give them that push that they need. With my community specifically, I don't see it happening. I don't see the Jamaican influence or Jamaican, essence being promoted in organizations or in government. I don't see it. I know we have a government official who is from the Caribbean, but other than that, I don't really see it. And I would really hope for that to happen, so I can walk into a building and, feel appreciated, like, okay, these people are appreciating my culture, and not even just my culture, but just other cultures in general. That would make me feel really good just to be in that space. Yeah.
So how is the dynamics between the Black community in general, considering that you all come from different parts of the world?
Like with each other?
The Black, yes.
Black consists like of the Caribbean and African culture. We are distinct but similar. I think there is overlap, or not overlap, but we kind of merge with each other somewhat. Specifically, the Nigerian culture merges right now with the Caribbean culture. I would really like to learn more about other cultures, Ethiopian culture, Senegalese, Congolese. We're not really in touch with each other that way. I think the reason why Nigeria and Jamaica specifically share that connection is because of the music. We share similar music, similar dance moves, food even. So, but I would really like to see that. I would love to be engaged with another Black community, but right now, that I don't think that, for me personally, that doesn't exist. But organizations or events like Folklorama or the African Cup of Nation, that's kind of where you go to, get engaged or to meet and mingle with different Black communities.
That's right.
Yeah, but I don't think if the opportunity is given or if the interest is there, I don't think anyone would shy away from it because we all look the same. So that alone draws you towards a person. I can talk easily to any other person looking like me. I just say, hey, where are you from? Whatever, It's easier than talking to somebody who doesn't show the same as I do. But I would like to work on that, yeah.
Wow, this is most interesting. We're almost at the end, and so can you tell us if there's anything at all in your mind that you think would make things better for our city?
Our city. Wow, a very heavy question. With justice in general, I think that there are other ways to find justice when it comes to criminal offenses. There are different cultural practices that people do to deal with issues. So for right now, I'm learning about the indigenous circles, and that's a really good way to get the community together and the community involved when something happens to disrupt the natural flow of a community. I think the general community should come together to deal with that issue instead of just sending that person to court and having them go through trial and meet in front of a judge. That doesn't help them reintegrate themselves back into the community. It just pushes them further away because now they're labeled as a criminal, labeled as a wrongdoer, and it's harder to get back in. So I think small communities have ways of doing that, of reintegrating their members, but it's just not official. And I think I would really love to see those small practices be made official and understood by other communities, because I think that would really work and help with the criminal justice issue that's happening, and with social justice too. Because when that person comes in that meeting with other community members, their family members, we're able to acknowledge the issues, the social issues that they're faced with, and support them in that way too. When they're left alone to deal with it, it's isolating and really only results in them doing it again, or moving further away from the community. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is the small informal practices that communities have that they use to build their community or join or reconnect or bond, I think those practices can be used by other cultures to help with their bonding and their reconnection. Even the Canadian culture, I think if we implement those practices with their issues or with their community, I think they'd benefit from it and even pull closer together. Because right now it feels very individualistic, and I think we should really work on the community part of society. Because no man is an island, no man stands alone. I've learned that from a child, and I really believe that. Yeah.
So what should be the future of our cultural communities?
Okay. Great question, and I have lots of ideas. I just think I would really love to see cultural communities, all of them, be at the front line of the decision makings that happen in government or in general for the society. Right now we're very westernized, and I think putting cultural communities at the forefront will help decolonize some of the ideas and theories and ways that we go about growing and enhancing and advancing our community or our society at this point. To answer your question, I think having communities or community leaders be a part of the decision making, or not even just a part of, but to lead decisions that are made would be great. I think that would eliminate not all, but most of the issues that are faced right now, the social issues, the lack of diversity and inclusion that exists still. I think putting cultural communities at the forefront of that would help to decolonize the way that we think and operate right now, and to remove the westernized thinking, because really the society and culture in general is moving. We're shifting from it, but not having that input from cultural leaders or people, the grassroots people, will just have us lingering behind while the rest of the world is progressing. We're just lingering behind because we're still holding on to what's the tradition, what's usually done, or what we're okay with, or what we've learned in the past. I think we should move from that.
Okay, having that as a goal, what do you think should we be doing now
Okay.
to get to that moving forward?
Yeah, I think, well, the work that CMCCF is doing right now, just having those conversations with communities and building that relationship with communities to empower them to make the moves that they need in that community, then to push it out. So it's like, how do you say, like a tree. We plant the seed, and the planting of the seed is connecting with those communities for them to be empowered to grow the bark. And then with the branches and the leaves is each person going out into the other communities that they're in, whether that's their workplace or their schools, to empower other people there to do like work. So there will be influence once that seed is planted, and they're empowered to move out and go elsewhere to make influence. So whether that's, for me, if I do decide to become a lawyer, if I do decide to join government, my seed has been planted and I've been empowered. So when I move to that different organization, I can make influence because I know I know what I can add to that, and I know what will happen if I add my voice, or if I add my opinion, my perspective, my cultural perspective that was looked down on before. If I can add it to what's happening already and make that change, or encourage that change, initiate that change, I think with each person doing that, we can make movements all over.
Wow, thank you so much. Your story has bring forth a lot of important issues, important things that we can benefit from. And thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and till next time.